Okay. When I was a newborn in the hospital, I almost died. A nurse came to work with a strep throat, and I caught a strep throat from her. And as medical professionals here probably are aware, strep infections are very dangerous in newborns, and I have no memory of this, but my parents told me I almost died, and they finally responded to antibiotics and oxygen, and I pulled through. But I had no near-death experience at that time, and no memory of it. But throughout my childhood, I would have these vivid recurring dreams of being in a beautiful park. And then when I was about 3 years old, maybe 4, I had an out-of-body experience where one night I woke up in the middle of the night, found myself floating down the stairs to the basement. And even though it was pitch dark in there, I could see clearly. I could tell it was dark. It was as if there was also a night light on, or as if wherever I looked, it was like shining a flashlight on it. When I got to the bottom of the stairs, I fell back asleep and started praying without the furnace in the basement. But then in my teens, there was an occasion. I was in college in my dorm room, and one night I woke up, and then almost immediately after I woke up, I rose out of my body. And as I rose out of my body, I could briefly feel in my physical body kind of a sensation in my ears of falling, even though I was rising. And then I was floated above my body, a foot or two above my body, and I tried to move my feet, and I couldn't move my feet. But I found that if I visualized moving my feet, rather than try to make my feet move, I could move my feet. These were the feet of my spiritual body. Then after a short time, I sank back down into my physical body. And as I did that, I felt a brief sensation of rising in the ears of my physical body. And then I re-entered the physical body, my heart skipped a beat, and I went back to sleep. And I kind of theorized it to the physical body, the rising of the spiritual or astral body is actually like falling for the physical body and vice versa. Anyway, but then I was probably about, I guess, 18, 19, maybe 20, probably about 19. And this is the last out-of-body experience I had. And in all these out-of-body experiences, I was perfectly healthy, not sick or near death or anything. And this time, I woke up one night, and I found myself in this beautiful park. But this time, I was wide awake. I was not dreaming. And when I was in this park, I found it was very difficult to walk in the usual manner. I tried to walk with my legs. It was like walking through water or through molasses, but I could float. And as I moved along, my left cheek brushed against a leaf, which I felt on my cheek. And I continued along through this park. I looked down at the grass, and when I put my attention on the grass, I found that I could see it crystal sharp, kind of like looking at it through a magnifying glass. And I could also sort of feel and smell the grass as well at the same time, even though I wasn't touching the grass, I was pretty close to the grass. My awareness was, I was more awake than I am in normal daily life, more aware, a heightened awareness. Anyway, so as I was continuing along, I encountered this group of children. The oldest was about 14. He was the leader of the group, and he invited me to join him. Now, I declined. I suppose if he was college age, I might have accepted, but he was about 14. The others seemed like elementary school age. So, and then he kind of telepathically offered me a Coke and kind of sent me an image of a Coke, a small Coke bottle, which puzzled me for many years afterward. But anyway, I declined that as well, and then we went our separate ways in the park, and after a very short time I fell back to sleep, and I started dreaming about the park. Well, 2 years later, around the age of 21, still in college, I was at this prayer group meeting that I attended, and I should mention that during my adolescence I became interested in ESP and New Age philosophy and stuff like that. And in this group there were a couple of people who were a little bit psychic, and they told me that I tended to kind of take energy from people, kind of like an energy vampire, perhaps. And instead of, people, they'd actually be giving energy. And as a background to that, throughout my childhood and adolescence, I had a somewhat high-strung or sensitive nervous system. I wouldn't want to say hyperactive or ADHD or an anxiety disorder or anything like that, more of a tense, high-strung nervous system. And I believe that was the cause of my unconsciously taking energy from people. So anyway, so I decided the next day I'm going to fix this thing. I want to stop taking energy from people. Instead, I want to start giving energy to people. So I walked across the college campus, and I started trying to send energy to people. As I passed each person, I tried to project energy to them or send it to them. Imagine myself sending energy to them, bless them. And after a few minutes of this, I started feeling energy coming out of myself and going into these other people, kind of positive energy. It seemed like when that happened, it seemed like they brightened up a little bit or perked up or became a little happier. Well, after a few more minutes, I discovered that this energy was a feeling of godly, unconditional love. It was, I refer to it as love energy. It's this energy, this love energy going out of myself to these two people as I walked along when I would try to send it to them. It seemed to be coming out of my heart area. So I continued practicing this for a number of weeks. And then as time went on, I started feeling like a loving presence in my head, which I refer to as the presence of God, kind of the presence of love, kind of like a love and light, but a light you can feel but not see. And as time went on, I started, instead of sending the energy out of my heart, I started sending it out of my head. So it was a more, kind of a more mature type of energy. And again, when I would do this, it would seem to have positive effects on people, very subtle. They weren't consciously aware of it. But it was good for them and good for me. For myself, it took care of that nervous system, for one thing. That's cured me of that high-strung nervous system. It also made me calmer and more patient, more loving. Friends commented on the improvement in my personality, though they didn't know why, and I didn't tell them why. Anyway, then a number of years later, in 1989, I attended a lecture by Dr. George Ritchie, a well-known near-death experiencer and a psychiatrist. And by this time, I finished my medical school and become a psychiatrist. And I attended this lecture. And he said that in this lecture, he mentioned that he talked about his meeting Jesus, who was who radiated such powerful love energy that anyone in this presence would not want to leave it. And I realized that this is what everyone is supposed to become. This, like Jesus, a being of light on earth. And so I continued trying to build toward this. And I found that as I continued practicing sending out love energy, that it reached the point where, where even if I'm just sitting there without consciously trying to send out love energy, I can feel some love energy going out, in all directions. I can also focus it on people. Then in 2005, I was living in Virginia Beach, where I still live. I attended this IANS conference in 2005, which was held in Virginia Beach. And the first lecture that at the conference was a substitute lecture. The original lecture was supposed to be Reverend Storm, but he was unable to come, and Paul Guggenheim substituted as the lecturer. I think he was originally supposed to lecture later in the conference. And on the podium in his lecture, on the lectern, was a small bottle of Coke, which I immediately recognized as the bottle of Coke that had been offered to me in my, what I consider my trip to heaven at the age of 19. And at this conference, I came to the realization that everyone in the world should be sending out this love energy just like me. And that in time, if everyone were to do this, it would change this world into a paradise on earth. And it would all grow into beings of light on earth. We would all evolve into that. And the world would become like Reverend Storm says in his book, which he predicts for 200 years in the future, which is a paradise on earth. And so I'd just like to encourage everybody to repeat this experiment that I did, trying to send. So I'm now just kind of practicing sending love energy to people, and then hopefully for a lot of people, they'll start becoming aware. They'll notice energy going out from them. They'll start becoming aware that this is actually love coming out from them. And I think this could build into something wonderful for the world. A little bit more about the love energy. It's possible to put thought vibrations onto the love energy. For example, you can add joy or peace or calmness onto the energy if you perceive the person needs to have that added to the love energy. When you send love energy to others, you can perceive their needs to some extent, whether they might need love or peace or happiness, joyfulness. You can see their spiritual potential. You can perceive there's like a kind of a baby being of light inside each person. It's just a wonderful thing to do, and I believe that anybody can do it. Actually, I guess that was my main message. I could go on about a number of theories I have about for example, I think that this love energy works through the chakras in the body, the 7 centers. The energy enters the first chakra, and then when it goes up to the, it feels like a neutral energy at that point, and then when it reaches the heart chakra, if we open the heart chakra, then we can feel the love. Then, to get into the head, you have to surrender to God in the chakra in the throat. This is otherwise that will block the energy from going higher. You have to surrender to that, and then in the head we have the we have the presence of God, and then the love energy can go into the head, and then we would feel the presence of God at that point. And the presence of God will give us gives us guidance, hunches, feelings of the right thing to do, or just gives us an awareness of the right thing to do or say. I think in time, as our consciousness gets raised, and we are to a higher and higher level, and that we become more at one with this presence of God within us. As that happens, instead of like receiving guidance from the presence, we just have an inner knowledge of what to do and say rather than being guided in it. I had this idea that before we're born, it's kind of like we're a drop of love in an ocean of love, and we're very much aware, almost more aware of the ocean than of the drop. And then, as we're born, we learn as a child to have a more individualized consciousness. And then, as we get older, we learn to love other humans, our family, parents, wife, children. And then from there, we can progress to loving to this unconditional agape love for all. Now, the love at the heart chakra level is somewhat subjective, it's kind of like a subjective compassion, and it can become maybe an impractical do-gooder. But so therefore, you want to raise that love into the head, where the presence of God resides, and there is an objective love. We need to send that love out as humans on earth, because I think, like say, God is sending out the love on a generalized level, like sunshine, and it's just permeates the universe, but it's not specific or individualized. And the angels will also send out this love, maybe more specific, but there it's more rarefied. But when humans send out the love, there it's on an earth level. It's so we really need to be sending out that love ourselves. So I guess it's time to stop.
Both of your sharings were really moving. But I wanted to specifically say to Joseph, your story was in Vital Signs recently. I read it, and I tried it, and it works. And it is really fine. And it's changed me, I think. And I thank you. And thank you for the additional insights that you just shared with us. I just want to tell you that you have reached one other person at least, and I would highly recommend this to everyone. And what I do, especially when there are lots of people going to the airport to pick someone up, there's hundreds of people, and you can bless a whole bunch of people at once. And I find that I'm really interested in the people that I'm blessing, much more interested than I would have been. I'm driving along, and I usually get frustrated with other drivers, but you can't be frustrated with somebody you're blessing, and I'm not. And it's something that you need to constantly keep in mind, but God bless you, God bless you, God bless you, God bless you, God bless you.
Thank you very much.
Joseph, it was wonderful to hear you talk about this love energy. I've been working for a number of years here on trying to create a love energy model of existence, if you will, and something that will explain, although the indeed pretty much explains who we are, where we're going, where we came from. But the why we're here is a little more difficult, and I'm at a stage with that where I'm comfortable with that. And it's based really, it's a love-centered model rather than an ego-centered model. And this love energy is such a powerful force. And when I was on the other side, I could see how everything was connected with this love energy, these threads connecting everything. And then you get into why and so forth. So I've been working on that, but it'd be nice to have a conference with with love, perhaps, or describing the love we felt on the other side of the team.
I'd be happy to talk to you afterwards.
Yeah, I would do too.
I think our purpose on Earth is to become. We can focus this love energy on Earth and send it out, and in a way that can't be done from heaven. And this is our job on Earth, I think. And we're all supposed to become individualized beings of light on Earth, ultimately. I think in heaven it's easy to things look much. One would think, it seems why in the world it's so easy to do this. Why can't these people on Earth do like they're supposed to do? But when you get down here, you find it's much more difficult than it seems. So,
Yeah, in my model, I was picturing, you described, I picture an ocean of love energy and would drop into that ocean.
that's right. Yes.
Can this love energy be sent to a person hundreds of miles away, or is it more effective if they're close?
Well, I think it can be sent hundreds of miles away. There's, you can through prayer or visualization, or it's like you think of somebody, you send love energy to them, to situations, to world situations. Now, see, up close, you can send it directly. It's if you can send it directly from your oar to the other person's oar. Particularly if the oars are touching, it's really easy. If somebody's touching you and you're at a higher vibration of love energy, you can feel energy going from yourself into that other person. The energy has a healing effect. Now, in my case, it seems to be just a very subtle effect. I don't think I'm a healer necessarily, but it has a positive effect on people. I'm not a healer. I'm not a psychic, but it has enhanced what healing potential or psychic potential I might have had. But yeah, you can definitely send it at a distance.
Great topics. Thank you very much.
we all talk about love as if we all agree on what it means. And I think that we all have our own perceptions of what it means. And my experience, subjective interpretation, coming back with the information, was that love is many textures, and that we breathed a type of love, our form was love, the structures were love, the color was love, and that, for me anyway, Turner's watercolors show many different dimensions of love, and that in this reality, it could not exist without those different structures or dimensions of love. And I just wanted to point out that it's not just one thing, or we say all powerful and all, we have all these colorful words, but I just wanted to offer the understanding or perception that anything you can imagine in this reality is a reflection of the structures and dimensions of that. That was my experience.
Now, I think that love is an actual physical energy, and everything is made of it, matter, energy, whatnot. It's condensed, and it can take so many forms. Thought can affect the love energy and create things out of the love energy in heavenly realms. It can be done instantly. On Earth, it's a much slower process, and then you can put different flavors or vibrations or whatnot on the love energy, and there's just an infinite variety to it. But the basic love energy, as I see it, is a pure, agape, unconditional love force, and that you can, that we need to send out to other people.
Yes, I totally agree. I just wanted to bring the possible awareness that it's way beyond what we can even imagine, even though we try to use words, that it has, like some of the designs that we've seen, that it's just so many more dimensions than what we presently may be able to imagine.
I agree completely.
I just have one other comment to make, and that is John Odette has brought to us a very strong message, and Bruce Grayson added to that as well, that we need to get on with things, and things need to start to be done differently. And I think in order for humanity to rise to another level, and actually I think that if we all started to do this, and the word were to get out, we don't necessarily need to have, an additional, theory of things, but we need to have, more love.
Joseph, in 1978, I took a course from in a metaphysical group whose leader I respected a lot, Tony Ficciello, and he advised the group to think of somebody who made you very, very angry, and aim love at that person. You're supposed to say, "With a beam of love from my heart, I touch the heart of whoever the person is." Now, there was a woman who had required me to do something that made me furious. And it was, I was kind of helpless in the situation. I did what she wanted, but I was furious. So I figured she's a target. I'll use her. It says, do that, and the beam of love, with a beam of love, I touched the heart of my sister, Marlene. So I did it. Then, 2 years later, in 1980, the situation was reversed 180 degrees. It just happened that way. And things fell into place such that poetic justice was executed, I was required to do the same thing to her that she did to me. By the rules of the situation, I had to do it. Otherwise, I would have violated the rules. And so I did it. I think it was 1,000,000 to 1 shot the way it laid out. I don't want to take the time to explain all the details of it, but it was a mind-blowing thing. So the point that I'm getting at is that doing what you suggested can bring about poetic justice in some circumstances.
That's interesting. I'd like to comment that we should send this love energy to everybody. If you send it to people who you might be angry at or they might be angry at you, it will help the situation. It will calm down the anger on both sides. You can send it to people who don't like you, and over a period of time, it may take a while, but gradually they will probably come around. Other times it will respond immediately. So, I think that's great to send love energy to everyone, especially, and both, including people we might have differences with, and also we need to do it at home, because I find that at home it's easy to just relax and forget about it and let your hair down, and then you might not send out the love energy at home as much as you should. So you want to remember that as well.
So I'd have to confess that I'm just a beginner at this process, and to endorse what you said, Joseph. My path began just a few weeks ago in Seattle, where I made the shaky decision to give up 40 years of drinking coffee, which is unthinkable in Seattle, as you can understand. And not just coffee, but coffee syrup. But this had quite an effect on opening my heart, although it was a very gradual process. And after several weeks, I began to notice, as I was driving along, that I really wanted to try to overcome the I-thou separation that I could feel now very distinctly between me and others, which is at least my own admission that this was my problem and mine to overcome. And I began experiments as I was driving along. Maybe you can identify with this. I was beginning to lovingly reach out with people as I was driving along. I wouldn't say that I was sending them love, but I was attempting to see if I could make loving connection. I was so committed to this that I began to notice I don't even know what was working with me anymore. It was as though the forces around my head and my chest were causing me to look at someone, and if I had difficulty, I was relooking, and then I could find a way of looking at them, and I could make a connection with a deeper part of them, and I could feel them in my heart, and this loving connection could be made. With some people it was easy, with other people it was like I had to somehow find a way of dancing around energies that I could almost see, but still I could connect with a deeper part of them. This significantly changed, profoundly changed my sense of what I could do with this. I noticed as I continued to do this day after day that I was beginning to create a pattern in me, a faculty, that I didn't really have to practice as much anymore, because it was now beginning to grow. To the point where now, as I'm walking along, it almost seems to be automatic. Just loving connections will seem to happen just like that, because I've awakened something that's been dormant, and maybe dormant in all of us. And it's been one of the most meaningful things that I've just discovered. So, and then I will also add that to endorse everybody has said here about reaching out prayerfully or in love to people we hate, have other kinds of problems with, despise, blah, blah, blah. Yes, I found that, to my shock, I will not see them for a long time, but I've done some outreach and I'll encounter them later, and there's all this warmth that is going between us. My heavens, it works.
Please help me thank Cheryl and Joseph for sharing all the things.